Hello, everyone. I'm so happy that we're here tonight to hear Mike Edwards, who's our Helping Fathers Heal affiliate leader, talk about the affiliate and talk about his own journey to healing. And so I'll be starting by reading the mission statement and then reading a short bio for Mike, and then we'll get started together. Helping Parents Heal is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting bereaved parents to become shining light parents by providing support and resources to aid in the healing process. We go a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and evidence for the afterlife in a non-dogmatic way. Affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background, and allow for open dialogue. Attendance today at the Helping Parents Heal meeting is voluntary, and we are here for the benefit of learning from and sharing with other parents whose child has passed away. It is understood that our discussions are intended to be confidential and not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers to allow parents to be informed about many possible ways to heal, to connect with their children, and to learn about the afterlife. The views expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of Helping Parents Heal, and we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. So that's read, and now I'm going to go ahead and move into Mike's bio. And again, Mike is our Helping Fathers Heal affiliate leader, and I am so grateful that you're going to have to tell me exactly how long it's been, Mike, but it seems like it's been about 2 years, a year and a half that you've been holding meetings every
March
week?
1st last year.
Okay. So anyway, but it is a huge undertaking to do these every single week, which is just amazing. And I'm just going to read a little bit about Mike. Mike's son and only child, Dylan, passed due to a heroin overdose on November 28, 2016, shortly after his 24th birthday, and just before reaching 6 months of continuous sobriety. After attending several grief meetings for parents, Mike saw the obvious lack of participation by fathers. In March 2019, he started Helping Fathers Heal, an affiliate group of Helping Parents Heal. The closed group provides a confidential, safe place for men to share their challenges and successes in dealing with devastating child loss. In this meeting, Mike will share his story, including examples of afterlife evidence from Dylan since his passing, and how these signs have changed the trajectory of Mike's life path and helped him to find acceptance, humility, serenity, and hope. So without further ado, please welcome Mike Edwards.
Hey everybody. Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to come out tonight, and thanks Elizabeth for the invitation to speak. And as you said, we have meetings every other week for the fathers only, and so this is really a good opportunity for us to get feedback from the spouses as well. So it's kind of exciting. I gave this on Monday at the Open Hope Grief Conference, and we had a pretty good turnout, and there were a lot of ladies there that day, and they had questions that you'll probably have similar questions at the end of my presentation. And so the way I structured it, I made it a little more formal than what I'm usually do. I put together like a PowerPoint presentation because when you're talking about afterlife evidence, there are some things that you need to be able to show. And it's also good for me to have structure so that I stay on track and don't ramble too much. So I'm going to do a screen share here. And let's see. Okay. You see that okay? Yeah? Okay. So this is sort of a representative of what we did on Monday, but I've actually added a little more material to it since then. And what we'll do is at the end of this, we'll open it up for general discussion and questions and that sort of thing. So just so you know, the players, this is our family, and that's my wife Allison and our son Dylan. And so just a quick background, we live in Katy, Texas, which is a suburb of West Houston. And Allison and I have been married for 32 years, and I was a geophysicist for almost 40 years in the seismic data acquisition and processing business. So the reason I put that in there is to sort of give you the flavor of how my brain thinks. I'm a real right brain analytical type. And, you know, my whole life I was always, you know, I didn't want to make decisions unless it was something that was, you know, accurate, verifiable, based on data and that sort of thing. So it's been quite a change for me over the last 3.5 years. So Dylan passed from a heroin overdose the Monday after Thanksgiving in 2016. And we had a great Thanksgiving with he and his girlfriend, who visited from Austin. And, you know, it was all wonderful, but that he relapsed that Monday, and just that one relapse after getting clean for 6 months, you know, was too much for his body to take because he no longer had the tolerance built up. You know, he was back doing CrossFit and eating right, diet and all that was good. And you know, so he had beat it for 6 months. So he'd been struggling with heroin for about 5 years and even years before that with other addictions, with other substances. So that changed my life trajectory, as it has, I'm sure, all of you as well, you've been through. And, you know, in the beginning, you know, when Dylan passed, I just became really obsessed with where Dylan was and was he okay? And, you know, people could tell me whatever they wanted to tell me, but I went on a search for my own truth because I wanted to know it in my heart. And I did that by what's called intellectualizing grief through research. So I started researching grief. You know, I went through the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross books and some other things, and they were great, but I got pretty bored with those pretty quick because they were very repetitious. They all made sense, but I wanted more than that, so I started researching afterlife, and so the different levels of consciousness and you know, all these similarities. When I read all these different authors and I watched videos and that sort of thing, all the specific similarities were just amazing to me, because I mean, it was almost like all these authors had sat around a table and said, well, this is what we need to put in our books, but of course they weren't doing that, right? And being a geophysicist, the science-based content that I was learning in my research about vibrational changes, frequency levels, and that sort of thing, you know, was really interesting to me because I somewhat understood it. And so it really got a hold of me. And then I started reading about, you know, mediumship and various types of afterlife communication. So I was looking into mediumship and near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences, astral travel, you know, just about everything I could get my hands on, you know. So Allison and I, that first March after Dylan passed, we went to a grief session for parents who had lost children. And like Elizabeth said earlier, I had noticed that, like, you know, out of 30 or 40, you know, attending, there were maybe 3 or 4 dads. And, you know, it's just because men suck at grief, you know, we just, you know, that's the way we're raised, and we don't really know what to do with it sometimes. And we sometimes try to just take care of everything that's going on around us instead of ourselves. And the other thing that I noticed was that, you know, every time we had a meeting, it felt the same. It was like a circular, non-solution based discussion. And it was like a rehash of all the bad things that had happened, and that was it. So we always left the meeting, or I left the meeting, you know, feeling worse or as bad as when I went in. So what I was after was, you know, like, when I came out of what I call the fog, and for me, it was about a year, then I had the realization that, my son was actually gone, and or the physical son was actually gone. And it's like, well, what am I supposed to do with this now? How am I supposed to have a life going forward? And how am I supposed to find any joy or look forward to doing anything ever again? So that to me is what was missing in the other parent grief meetings. So we had our first reading on July 1st, 2017, with a guy here in Houston, and his name's Fernando Marron. He's not on our providers list, but he did wonderful things for us in that first reading, and I'll talk about that in a second. And then the research eventually led me to Helping Parents Heal, and I got, Allison and I got involved with the group, and then we attended the first conference back in April 18 in Scottsdale. And that was the first meeting that I came out of feeling much, much better and relieved versus when I went in. So we got hooked on that. And then, let's see, sorry about this. So now what I want to do is I want to give you some examples of what I call continuation evidence from Dylan. And this kind of gives you a picture of like what kind of kid we're talking about. He was pretty crazy. He had a really good sense of humor. And he could definitely make people laugh when he wanted to. He was a great guy. So, like I said, let's see. Oh, okay. So in March 2017, I went online to book a first reading because by then I had done enough research to know that I wanted to have one to see if it was right. So I researched a lot of different mediums. I wasn't really involved to that extent yet with Helping Parents Heal, the providers list and all that. So I found Fernando, and so I went online to do the booking. And the first available date, this was in March 17, the first available date, it went all the way to the October calendar, and every single day on the October calendar was closed. It was grayed out except for his birthday. And, we'd never met this guy. He didn't know us, at all. I mean, we'd never even talked to him. So it was just astounding to me. I was floored with that. And then during our first reading, once we got comfortable with Fernando, and Dylan was coming through Fernando, one thing that hit us was back in around October before Dylan had passed, he wanted this watch for Christmas. And so we ordered this watch, and the watch actually showed up in the mail. We'd forgotten all about it. It showed up in the mail the day after Dylan's service. And so that was, pretty tough. And, but during the reading, Dylan said to tell us he's sorry about the watch, So, there's no way that anybody could Google that sort of information. And so all of a sudden my skeptic wall started to soften and to come down. And another thing that happened was that Fernando said, Dylan, he keeps telling me to tell you guys to look out for a big bird. And he said he's using those two specific words. He's not saying large bird or anything like that. Big bird, that's what you're supposed to be looking out for. So of course, after that, we'd be driving around and we'd say, oh, well, there's kind of a big bird, thinking, well, maybe that's it, and we were pretty green at all this. So Allison she works out at the Y, and she was walking out with a friend of hers who had her 4-year-old daughter with her. And they walked out the door, and the girl pointed up at the sky and said, Mommy, look at the big bird. And Allison looked up and saw this cloud formation that was exactly like a bird. I mean, it was just amazing, and she used those words. So when we left that first reading, and this is just two examples, there were many things that happened during that first reading, but we were so much lighter, coming out of there, because we knew that Dylan had connected with us and we knew that he was okay. So an apport, I can't see that. Can you see the definition there? So an apport is basically the manifestation or the moving of an object, okay? And we had never heard the term apport before. So on January 22nd, 2018, my habit was to have a talk to Dylan to sort of give him a daily update as I was driving to work. And on the 22nd, I said, Dylan, look, it would be super cool if you could give us some irrefutable evidence, that we could share with other people and that sort of thing. Something that just, couldn't be denied. So the very next day, and I hadn't told Allison about that conversation at all. The very next day, Allison was in the shower and she found this. And it was actually you can see it's really small, but it's actually an opal. And it was an opal in the shower. Neither one of us have ever owned an opal. And nobody else has been in here that would, be in our shower and drop an opal, okay? So the opal is Dylan's birthstone. And then we did some more research on the white opal. The white opal is a stone of sympathy and compassion, pure thoughts and confidence. It's the most unpredictable stone, a symbol of ever-changing fortune. The white opal gemstone challenges us to begin an inner trip, diving into the depths of our being to discover unidentified and unthinkable secrets. By getting restored, revitalized, and changed from this process, you will find a new lifestyle. So we thought the opal being Dylan's birthstone was phenomenal, and the fact that we found this thing. But then when we read about the white opal and it did some more research on it, it just floored us. So anyway, then we take the opal to the conference in April, and we present it to 2 or 3 mediums that we had worked with, and we show it to them. We tell them the story and say, so what is this? How did this happen? And they just kind of nonchalantly looked at us and said, it's an apport. It's something called an apport. And they go, well, what are we supposed to do with that? They said, be grateful. And all 3 of them said the same thing. It was like, it's an apport, be grateful. And so, it's just amazing stuff. And we are so grateful because in addition to the readings we had and stuff, I mean, this opal was it sealed the deal for me personally. So again, in December 20th, 18, I was talking to Dylan. We were up in Colorado. We've got a place up in Colorado that we bought as an eventual retirement home. And I was talking to Dylan in this truck while I was out running errands. And, I've got a reputation of being like a Diet Coke-aholic. In fact, that's what I'm drinking now. So, but anyway, I decided to stop and buy a Diet Coke. And Dylan used to give me, a hard time about Diet Cokes all the time. So when I walked in there and I went up to the display case, this is what I found. And I took a picture of it, and you'll notice that, this is back when Coke was putting people's names on the back of the bottles. And the only one that was turned to the back was the one that said Dad. And it was right after I just finished a conversation with him and pulled in. That it just floored me. I had goosebumps, and, I just couldn't believe it. So that's another good example. And the way we honor Dylan now is a little different from what we used to do. I mean, we're always looking for new ideas, and Allison came up with this great idea. She's a big time decorator. And when it comes to holidays and Christmas, of course, is the big one. So up in Colorado, in our bedroom, she's put up a tree. We call it the Dylan tree now. And we honor him by putting up various items that represent him, like his corsage that he had, at homecoming, and those are his drumsticks. And of course, that bottle now has joined the ornament collection. So this is a fireplace in that same bedroom, and we bought the place back in June 2012, and I'm so lazy that it took 7 years to get to the bottom of the wood pile. And at the bottom of the wood pile was like a lining of newspapers, and the newspapers, were just to protect the brick and that sort of thing. But, I had just kept adding wood, never got to the bottom. So we decided to clean it. And when we got to the bottom, there was a New York Times in there, and it was dated Tuesday, October 21st, 08, and that's Dylan's birthday. So again, we were just floored. And, it's just wonderful stuff, And what I've come to know is that even if I have a question or a doubt about something as possibly being a sign from Dylan, I accept it as being one with gratitude. And because what I would never want to do would be to doubt something that was a sign. So we were in a group reading December 15th, 18, with Kat Bailey. She was doing a big group reading, Zoom meeting. And she came to us and said, Dylan's showing me big rocks hiking in snow, and he's showing himself standing with his arms big and wide, kind of like an angel. And Allison and I were sitting there, and we got floored by her saying those words, because this was actually the screensaver on Allison's phone. And so this was Dylan's favorite spot on our property. And if you look in the background, that's our home. And so that was the cell phone screensaver that Allison had on her phone at the time. And we were planning to go up to Estes Park the next week, and that's one of the spots we were going to visit. That was his favorite spot because of the views, and it's on a corner. It's on a corner of our property, and it's where we're going to end up spreading his ashes when we get up there full time. So again, we were just amazed. Allison turned her phone around like instantly and said, "Look at this!" And I mean, it's just crazy stuff, It was wonderful. And on January 29th in 2019, again, we were with Kat Bailey, and she said, your son's showing me a plaque. I see mountains and snow in the background, but not a lot of snow when you were putting the plaque up, which was true. We put this plaque up in the summer. Allison got the idea of getting this plaque, and it's got like a stretch band on the back so you can put it on a tree. So as the tree grows, it expands with it. And you can see there that, loved and remembered always and forever Dylan, and it showed the dates and that we miss him. So on that picture on the right, if you look beyond that, that is where Dylan was standing, that boulder behind it. So I'll just give you, this is just one of many, 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 less subtle examples. It's like I was on the way to a business meeting one day and pulled into the only available parking space in the lot. And when I pulled in, there was a license plate staring me right ahead, and that was Dylan's birthday. So out of the whole parking lot, there's one space available for me to pull into, and that was it. So this is another example, I believe, of an apport, and this isn't about manifestation as much as transference. And so Allison, this is a tree that she does here in Houston for Christmas, and it's called the pig tree. And she and a group of girls, ladies that she's known for a long time, have this group that collect pig ornaments. They're really like pigs. And so she's collected maybe 200-300 pig ornaments over the years. And trust me, she knows every single ornament. And so when she was putting this tree up, one of the ornaments was missing, and she asked if I'd seen it, or, she couldn't remember having broken it or whatever. And we had an out-of-town guest coming in from Singapore. She was going to spend a few days with us. And when Allison was in the guest bathroom getting it ready for her, she opened the lower sink cabinet, and the pig ornament was underneath it was right there on the shelf. And I can tell you, we're the only two people in the house, and I didn't move it, and she sure didn't move it. So again, we were just blown away. And, you know, it's incredible stuff. She'd been looking for this ornament and just pretty much given up, I think. But it was a set of 3, and there it was. So this is a real recent example. On the 16th this month, I was in my car driving, and I got a really strange sounding ring on the hands-free system. And I'd never heard it before. So I looked down at the phone, and it was a FaceTime call coming in from me, from Mike Edwards. So I went, okay, well, that's weird. Maybe I bumped it or something, and I don't know what I did. So then, you know, I started thinking about it some more. And later I went in and I checked the call history on my hands-free system. And the FaceTime call was actually from Dad. And so then I started scratching my head thinking, well, okay, this is getting interesting. So I went into the cell phone and saw that the FaceTime app was actually, so I had a locked screen, and the FaceTime app was on the third screen over, right? So I couldn't have possibly accidentally hit the button and had this happen. And then I checked the FaceTime registry. I saw the Dad call, and then I drilled down a bit more and saw that there was the actual contact entry matched Dylan's contact entry for me in his cell phone. And that's an old number for an old company that I used to work for, and you know, that's what he had on his phone when he passed. I still haven't figured out how it got on my phone. And then this is real recent. This is like yesterday. So Allison's got this lady. It's her best friend of all time. Her name is Lynne Boston, and she lives over around New Braunfels in Seguin. And she received a letter from Allison that had 2 additional stamps attached to it. And Dylan, you know, Lynn and Ron were actually Dylan's godparents. I mean, we were super close with this couple. So he knew how close they were together. And so Allison's known for signing all of her texts and emails with a purple heart emoji. And you can see at the top of the envelope there. So to back up, this was the load of mail that Lynn received. And then here was Allison's letter, and there was an extra stamp on the front, and there was actually one on the back as well. And so that's the stamp that was on the back. And so it's a purple heart, and you can notice that the bottom right corner there is flipped up so that the A is missing, and it says "Forever Us." And it's not the first sign that Lynn has received from Dylan. So again, super cool. And that was just yesterday, you know? So now what I want to do just real quick, those are the brief list of examples I wanted to go through, because for us, those were probably the most significant ones that we've had over the last 3.5 years. But I want to talk briefly about what I've learned so far. And the way I look at this stuff, you know, if I sit in a meeting like this, you know, it's AA's has a thing where, you know, you go and sit in a meeting and, you know, take the best and leave the rest. So if there are any gold nuggets you can take out of this stuff, you know, that's my goal tonight, okay? So for me, what I've learned is that there are no rules, you know, for how each of us grieve. There just aren't. There are no rules. And if anybody tries to tell you, well, you're doing it wrong, you know what you can tell them. And, you know, I've also learned that people do not die. Only their physical bodies do. And I believe that each person's consciousness continues after, based on all the evidence we've gotten from Dylan and just everything we've experienced, and will never cease to exist. And I believe this is, and again, everything I'm going to share with you on the next 2 or 3 slides, it's all Mike Edwards stuff, okay? So you may agree or disagree, but this is what I've learned. And I believe that anyone who's passed, regardless of the reason, are thriving literally only a thought away from being with us. And I believe that Dylan can be in multiple places at one time, and all I have to do is think about him, and he's with me. And I may not see him and all that, but I know it's real. And I have found what I call my own truth, you know. And I'll just throw in too, you know, now that I know this about Dylan, I've started thinking about other people like my dad who passed and other relatives who have passed. And I had a brother that passed he died of AIDS 3 weeks before Dylan was born. And so he was my only sibling. And, you know, I've just never thought in these terms. But once you have a child that passes, you know, it just changes the trajectory of your life. And, you know, all of a sudden you have a reason to get really involved in this stuff. So Dylan's no longer here, but he and I can still maintain a different, unique, and loving relationship. And I believe that all humans are spiritually connected. So how we treat each other and another person is actually how we're treating a small part of ourselves. Because I really thoroughly believe that we are all connected and we're all from the same source, energy, higher power, God, whatever term you want to use. I think we're all connected spiritually. It doesn't mean we have to agree with each other, that's for sure, but I do think that we're spiritually connected. And it's helped me a lot when it comes to things like empathy and you know, showing love and expressing love and that sort of thing. Another thing I found out was that healing requires effort and forward movement and thinking. And the reason I throw that out there is because I think for a while I sort of found myself in my comfort zone became grief. And I didn't know what to do with it. And I was in such a grief state that I just didn't have it in me to move forward or to or make the effort. And once I did, that's when things started to change. Okay. I refused to allow grief to become my comfort zone. I've also learned, and this was really tough for me, because I'm a control freak, you know, and I was a boss and analytical, right brain thinker, all that. I don't have to understand something. That's no longer a requirement for it to be true. Okay. So just because I don't thoroughly understand the process or the whys or the whats or the hows doesn't mean it's not true. And, you know, in a lifetime is just a blink in the grand scheme. If you think about the millions of years that everything's been around, I mean, if I live to be 90 or 100, it's a blink. It's nothing. And I'm going to be with Dylan again soon. And soon's a relative term, you know. I also believe thoroughly that every person's exactly where they're supposed to be at any point in time and learning what they're supposed to be learning. And I know that's true for me. And that doesn't mean you have to like it, but I believe that it's true. The other thing is, you know, don't sweat the small stuff, because now it's all small stuff. And it was all small stuff before, but I used to make mountains out of nothing. And boy, the things that were important to me, you know, before Dylan passed, it's minuscule now. It's no big deal. And now that Allison and I have experienced the worst, we know we can get through any situation or feeling that presents itself. I also have learned that there's no reason to fear death or what life is going to bring in the future. And a lot of that for me personally is connected to, you know, the lifetime being a blink in the grand scheme and not being afraid of death, you know. And it's okay for me to feel happy and laugh again. You know, Allison and I, you know, have sat around and talked about this before. You know, in the early days, if I laughed at a joke, I felt guilty. You know, it was like, oh man, I don't have the right to laugh at a joke or be happy. You know, my son's passed. Well, that's not true. That's not true anymore. And so I'm back to cracking jokes every now and then, and it feels good, you know. And I'm sure that's what Dylan would want for me. So I've only got a couple more slides just to wrap it up. But my keys for healing is constant vigilance to keep an open mind to anything at all. Anything's possible. I don't have to figure it out. I don't have to understand it. I just have to accept that I'm not going to figure out and understand everything. And just because I don't doesn't mean it's not true. Live one day at a time. And, you know, I've talked to some dads who were so down in the dumps, so miserable. You know, they said, I can't even take it one day at a time. And I said, look, dude, can you get through the next hour? And the guy said, yeah, I can do that. And I said, okay, just take it 1 hour at a time then. And then before you know it, you'll have a day behind you, you know, and you will have proven that you could do it. You can go down to a minute at a time. I mean, it depends on where you are, right? Practice humility, vulnerability, and serve others whenever I can. And for me, I was an isolator, and if I needed help, you could just forget about me reaching out or letting anybody know that I even needed it. And that's a big deal, and that's a big deal for the men in the group. You know, that's just the way we're wired. And so don't isolate or be afraid to reach out and ask for help. You know, the ladies and the women, I mean, you guys get it. And you know, I look at HPH, the Facebook page all the time, and I see what Allison does and all the posts she does. And, you know, you're just wired different, you know. I'm glad half the world is wired that way because we're sure not. Anyway, the other thing is awareness about my thoughts and actions and decisions and what goes on around me, including signs and events and that sort of thing. So I've developed sort of this awareness, a greater awareness of what's going on, and with patience with myself and others, and remembering that, you know, what I'm doing is actually updating, you know, my memory and I'm rewiring my brain after 60 years of a habitual thought pattern, and, you know, recreating my belief system. And a lot of those beliefs haven't gone away, but now they've changed, they've morphed, and they're actually greater now. I think they've expanded, you know. And I think this is the last one, acceptance. So acceptance for me was the real game changer. It was accepting that my life is not going forward, is not going to be what I previously imagined. And, you know, the logical part of me said, okay, you get that, okay, fine. But I didn't accept it, you know. It was like I was always trying to swim, you know, against the current instead of with it, you know. And once I turned around and started going with the flow instead of trying to, you know, control everything, you know, my life just got a lot simpler. There's also gratitude. The fact of gratitude is huge for me. And this is all like a daily ongoing process. And I'm a long way from where I need to be, but at least I feel like I have a path now, you know. Make time every day for deep thought and the really slow, patient reevaluation of my priorities. And then I do what I can every day to honor Dylan, you know. I'll give you one idea. Another idea that Allison came up with to honor Dylan. The day before his birthday one year, she went to a Kroger or H-E-B or something, and into the bakery section, and she asked if anybody had ordered a birthday cake for a kid's birthday the next day on Dylan's birthday. And they said, yeah, here's one, you know. And so she paid for it anonymously and left a note saying, this is in honor of our son, whose birthday is tomorrow as well. And so she did that once, and then, you know, I thought that was a fantastic idea. So, you know, this last year, you know, we went to several places and did the same thing and included the notes. And for us, you know, the way I look at that is that it's kind of not only a pay it forward, but kind of a ripple effect probably, because whoever picks up the cake is going to be, you know, it's going to have a connection there. And then they're going to go back. They're going to probably talk about it with the parents at the party and the kids. And, you know, so it's kind of like I just see this big ripple effect probably happening with these, something as simple as paying for a birthday cake, you know. And I thought I just threw these in because I think they're cool. And I sure wouldn't be the guy standing on the rock over there. It's a place in Norway, though. I used to work for a Norwegian company, and they were always sending me pictures of, you know, showing off how beautiful Norway is and stuff. But to me, it's like looking at these pictures reminds me that life is still worth living, sharing. There's really cool stuff out there still to enjoy and to discover. And now what I have to do is figure out, you know, how I'm going to use this new knowledge to make the most out of what I've got remaining in my life, you know, put it to the best use and try to find that joy again. And just a reminder that the spouses and partners are our best recruiters for helping fathers heal. So if you've got somebody that you can send to me that might want to talk or maybe needs some help, wants to talk to somebody that gets it, just, you know, I'm always available. And there's our link to the Helping Fathers Heal page. Okay, last slide, and then I'm done. I come across these pictures that are just super cool. And again, it reminds me that there are still things to be discovered out there that are just beautiful. And it all comes down to this right here. And let me tell you something. 3.5 years, 4 years ago, I never would have said that. You wouldn't have gotten that out of me. You know, it just wouldn't have been me. And things have just changed a lot. So, you know, for me to be able to sit in a group of men and at the end of the meeting say, I love all you guys, you know, is well, only you guys that knew me before know. So I can tell you it's different. So thanks. And so now we can open it up for a group discussion. And
that was amazing. Oh my gosh. Tell me something. Can you take the screen down so that we can see everybody?
There you go.
Oh, listen, Mike, oh my gosh. I was getting chills all the way through that. And not only that, but I just want to say that obviously it's been 4 years, but that Dylan has been with you this whole time. And that's one of the things that is so important that you expressed, that we are not leaving our kids behind by being happy and doing amazing things. They're with us and they're holding our hands. They're our biggest cheerleaders. And not just that, when we have our meetings, and I've had psychics at the meetings with us, they tell me that the kids are all there. They're all joined together. There's usually more kids than there are parents because they all work together. And then when they see one of us smile, they high five each other because it's so significant to them that they're able to get us to be able to smile, to be able to move forward, and to be able to heal. So your story is so amazing to me. And I just feel so grateful that you have had all of these amazing things happen. I wanted to ask you, I know that you had a reading with Suzanne Giesman fairly early on in your journey. Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah. Well, again, we were up in Colorado. I got to put these back on because you guys are all blurry. Again, we were back up in Colorado, and she had a really full schedule, and I think word got to her that we were really fresh and new and needed a reading. And so she connected with us on a Sunday morning really early. And she was telling us things like, she's like, for example, she was doing this with her fingers. And she goes, he's doing this. Like, I don't know what this is, you know, like he just keeps doing this. And I said, well, he used to play drums. He was a percussionist. And so that's him twirling his stick. Right? And she goes, oh, that's it. Yeah. And she was like, wow, I've never had one of those before, you know, like twirling the stick. And she talked about his facial hair and, you know, he was real proud of his little goatee thing. And so here, if you're here, Dylan, I mean, it's cool. Your goatee's cool. So her reading was really good. It was she nailed a lot of stuff for us, and it came at a really good time. I think we really needed it at that time. So I think it was kind of a maybe being steered to her, or I don't know exactly what, but yeah, it was wonderful.
But it was before you knew about Helping Parents Heal, wasn't it, Suzanne, who told you about Helping Parents Heal? Is that right? Or
yeah, I think she was one of the ones that steered us in that direction.
so
Yeah.
that's very exciting, and it's
Yeah.
exciting.
Can
that you
I
guys,
interject a little bit?
yes, of course, Allison, but we
because
can't see you. Can you?
You know why you can't see me? Because I'm back in the bedroom
Oh, okay.
keeping our dog quiet
Okay,
so that she
okay.
doesn't interrupt Daddy's presentation. So
No
we're not
worries.
really presentable.
Well, you look beautiful, so no worries.
And you can see the dog in that picture too.
Okay.
I was just going to say that I believe we had our reading in February with Suzanne before the conference, and
Right.
we had joined Helping Parents Heal, and we had signed up for the conference. Of course, we hadn't gone yet, but we found out about Suzanne through Helping Parents Heal.
Oh, I see.
I believe.
So you
I
did.
believe.
Okay.
And there were a few things. One of the things I have is a ring that Dylan gave me a long time ago. He had gone to a pawn shop. He was like 12 years old, and he knew my birthstone was a sapphire, and it was a little ring. I don't know how expensive it was, but you know, instead of buying himself something, he bought this ring for me. I was just like, whoa. So of course I wear it as a little pinky ring all the time. And one of the things that she said that kind of blew me away, she said, oh, Dylan is showing me a ring. And she said, but I'm getting the feeling that it's a ring that he gave you. And she said, that's kind of unusual. Most boys don't give their mothers rings.
Oh.
And I said, that's true, but you are absolutely right. He gave me a ring when he was 12 years old. So, and I wear it every day.
Well, that just
So
gave me chills.
you know, she tagged stuff like that was just very, very significant, and that nobody could have known. She also, we did not tell her how Dylan passed, and she immediately picked up on the fact that it was a substance and that he passed of a heroin overdose. So,
Yeah.
Oh my
and that he
gosh.
was in a marching band, and you know, we had some issues with him in his teens, and we sent him to a school for a while to try to help him out, and she picked up on that too. So
That's truly wonderful that she was
Yeah.
able to do that. I was going to ask you while you were doing your presentation, Mike, and now Allison as well, did Dylan ever tell you guys that he was going to be leaving early? Was that ever part of his language or anything that you
You know, from my standpoint, that's interesting, because I had this conversation with one of the dads, and so Dylan and I, he got my genes. Okay, so I'm a recovering alcoholic for many, many, many years, and so the reason I tell you that is because he and I used to go to meetings together sometimes, you know, when he was getting clean and stuff, and so the Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving, we were going to go to a meeting together because he had come in from Austin, and we were waiting on his girlfriend to show up the next day. And so we couldn't find a meeting we wanted to attend. And we said, well, okay, you know, we'll just have our own meeting. And so we went to a coffee shop and we sat there and had a meeting. But, you know, that meeting was like, it was much different from other stuff that we had, it just felt a lot deeper. The discussion was a lot deeper. And I looked him in the eye, and I remember I said, Dylan, I said, you know that you've used up all your lives, haven't you? Like a cat, right? And that was the terminology I used. He said, yeah, I know. And he said, one of the things that keeps me from slipping is because somewhere in me, I know that if I do one more time, that's going to be it. And And I said, well, you've used up all your lives. I'm glad you get that. And I mean, we had a really deep conversation, and we usually joke around and stuff, but not that day. It was real serious. And then after that, it lightened up and we had a great Thanksgiving and all that. But it was, and then, 3 days later is when he slipped, and he was right, And then one other thing was that a couple of months before, I felt myself going into like a really deep depression, and I didn't know what was going on with me, but it was almost hard to function. And I remember going up to Dallas for a oil and gas conference and having to stand around all day and do small talk with customers and stuff, and just being miserable. Like it was really hard to just be there, just to even function. And I didn't know what was going on. I just couldn't like put my finger on it. I had this end of the world feeling, you know what I mean? And then I realized, that I remembered that much later after Dylan passed, but it could have been there, with me sort of having a premonition or a subconscious thing going on. But that meeting I had with Dylan, I think was a biggie. Yeah.
Yeah.
At Allison as well.
It sounds like it was. And I was wondering, I think that everything that you've said is so helpful, but I'm sure that knowing some of the books that you've read, because you said that you read everything that you could, maybe just two of the top on your list, especially for dads, possibly the ones that really resonated with you.
Sure. I don't remember the names of the books offhand.
Authors.
Well, I remember one that really affected me, that grabbed me, was Eben Alexander's book.
Okay, so that's Proof of Heaven, and he spoke about that
Right.
in one of our meetings. So if anybody is interested, let's see, he's actually Dr. Eben Alexander, and he was on the panel that I was actually moderating just a couple days ago. So I'm writing in here Proof of Heaven. It is a wonderful book, and it's about his near-death experience.
Yeah. I remember that one specifically grabbing me because it was a scientist, sort of brain, a doctor, coming at it from an analytical standpoint. And so, yeah, he's fantastic. And, there's so many. I mean, Suzanne Gieseman's got some great books out there as well.
I was going to say that because after mentioning her, Pam was asking about if she's someone that we would recommend for reading. And of course, she would be fabulous to get a reading from, but she's got a really long wait list. But she does have some incredible books like Messages of Hope, which is probably the first one that anyone should read by her if they're interested. Maybe you could tell a little bit about her background, Mike, so that people would know. Let's see, Messages of Hope, while I'm writing this.
Yeah. So Suzanne Gieseman was actually in the military. Yeah.
Yes.
And I mean, she was a big dog in the military, and so I guess it was her stepdaughter that got struck by lightning and was killed, and it sort of that changed her trajectory, and she actually took it on herself to learn to become a medium. So she studied under some really fantastic people, and it took a long time, but she stuck it out, and now she's managed to get there. And what they all tell me is that we all have it in us to do this, at different levels, of course. But it takes commitment and discipline and practice, just like meditation. I mean, it takes commitment and effort, It
does. You're right.
It's not an easy thing to learn. So.
And luckily, there are people who are better at it than we are. Annalie is asking if any medium has confirmed that it was your son's soul contract to leave early. Has anybody told you that in the readings that you've had, or have you heard that?
I don't think so, unless Allison, if there's anything that she wants to throw in, but no.
Annalise asking because she was told her son wasn't going to make it past 24 years, and he crossed over a month before his 25th birthday. So I think that sometimes they do come up with this information. And for me, that was definitely something that happened. With Morgan, he told me when he was leaving for China that he wasn't coming back the day before he left. And with no sadness, he just said, Mom, I'm not coming back from China this time. And I said, don't go to China. That's crazy. And so I think that, and I don't think he understood even where that came from, but I think that a lot of times they do have a knowing, and I do believe it. Oh, and droplets of God, yes. Suzanne is writing in here about droplets of God that that Suzanne Giesman wrote as well, which is amazing. And we interviewed Mavis about that as well. So go ahead.
Allison might want to touch on anything with timelines and memory. We go to Allison, okay? So Allison, you might want to just touch on the poem that Dylan wrote.
Oh, the poem. Yeah. When we found it in ourselves to go through some of the things we had saved from when Dylan was young, you know, we all save our children's schoolwork and stuff and box it away. And, you know, it took us a while before we could start going through some of that. And we were actually going through it for the purpose of finding things to put on that Christmas tree. And I found a little book of poems that his fourth grade, it was either fourth grade or fifth grade class did. I can't remember which one. And they all chose a topic to write on, and, you know, cute little fourth grader poems. And then there's my son's poem, and it was about where we go when we die. And I didn't even remember that until we came across that little book, and we looked at it, and I went, oh my gosh, he was writing about going to heaven and what it would be like in fourth grade.
Yeah, he was like 9.
Yeah.
Okay, so he knew.
You know, all the other kids were talking about their summers and, you know,
yeah, yeah,
eating on them and stuff like that. And here's Dylan writing about dying, you know.
That's amazing. And not sad. It wasn't sad though, the poem,
no,
right?
No.
Yeah.
In fact, it was very, very positive to, you know, what he wrote about the experience that he made up, you know.
yeah.
That's amazing. Well, that's
And no, we did not ever have a medium specifically tell us anything in regards to a soul contract. So that really never came up in any of our readings. But I did read Schwartz's book, Our Soul Plan. I believe that's
Robert
it.
Schwartz, yeah. Robert Schwartz, and he's going to be speaking to our group in September, actually, just so everybody knows. He was one of our first speakers in Helping Parents Heal years and years ago, probably 9 years ago. And he was on a conference call, very similar to this, but just where you could hear everybody. And it was like 100 people you could get onto a conference call, which was really interesting. But while you're saying Robert Schwartz, Sue is also mentioning My Search for Christopher on the Other Side by Joe McQuillan is also a great book. And he also spoke to our group a couple nights ago. So
I ducked off to get my library so I could look it up.
Oh, okay.
So now I can remember the names of the books. I thought Matthew McKay's got one out that's really good. It's called Seeking Jordan.
Okay, I haven't read that one, but I'm going to
I thought that was
write
really
that
good.
in there. Can you
I
tell
put
me
that one in the chat as well.
Oh, you did? Okay, good.
Yeah, that was one I really liked also.
Which one?
Seeking Jordan.
Yeah.
Well, that's exciting. I need to read it and maybe see if he can come and speak to the group too. That would be exciting.
Yeah.
Here's one called Narcissist Mothers, but that's probably not applicable. I'm just kidding, right?
Okay, I'm muting myself.
Jeffrey Olson has got one out called Knowing.
Oh, yes, Knowing by
Knowing is really good for the guys. For anyone, really, that's a great book. Yeah.
And he also has spoken to our group many times, and just that book is incredible, and the things that he's gone through. Yes, definitely, that's a must read. Jeff O'Driscoll also has a book that's called Not Yet, which is really beautiful. Jeff O'Driscoll was in the emergency room when Jeffrey Olson's family was brought in, and he saw his wife above the operating table. And so he's an emergency room surgeon who has seen lots and lots of people go through his operating room, both here and on the other side, which is so interesting. So very similar to Evan Alexander as well.
Mm-hmm. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross had one that grabbed me too. It's called On Life After Death.
Yes, great book as well.
And there's one that's not specifically on this topic, but I kind of took a break from afterlife and all that. And I read this guy's book, and I've shared it with the guys in the group. It's called The Surrender Experiment. And it it's not about afterlife and all that, but it's about swimming with going with the current. This guy's got just this really incredible story. His name's Michael Singer.
How is Singer spelled? Is it Singer? Is that right?
Right, Michael
Okay,
Singer.
great.
Yeah.
Got it.
The Surrender Experiment. I would just recommend that to anybody at all to read. I was trying to find that other one from Suzanne Giesman that I can't remember the name
Well,
of.
there's Wolf's Messages, and
Yeah,
then
that's it. Yeah.
and Still Right Here, as well as Messages of Hope, as well as obviously Droplets of God, which is amazing about Mavis Patilla. And then she has about 13 books out, actually.
And I won't keep going on, but there is another author that I like a lot. His name is James von Praagh.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. And he's got Growing Up in Heaven and Talking to Heaven, and both of those I think are great books. So
They are, you're right.
get you going. So
in fact, he gave a copy of Growing Up in Heaven to every one of the parents who attended one of the meetings with Helping Parents Heal. So Growing Up in Heaven and Talking with Heaven is the second one, is that right?
Right.
Okay, Talking with Heaven. So I will just type that in there as well.
Talking to Heaven, sorry.
Oh, it's Talking to Heaven. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. No, he's a really good author, though. Yeah.
Yes. And Suzanne Klokenga is also saying that she read one of George Anderson's earliest books that led her to HPH, which might have been Walking in the Garden of Souls. And he's actually speaking on Monday, just to let you guys know. He was a keynote speaker at our first Helping Parents Heal conference, and he'll be speaking on Monday. And this has been wonderful. Do other people have any questions that you'd like to maybe even unmute yourself for? I mean, I certainly think it would be wonderful if you could just talk to Mike directly if you do have any questions.
Hi, Mike.
Okay. So
I just want to say thank you so much. I used to live in Katy, Texas.
Oh, wow, really?
And I was that was so wonderful. Your son seems so amazing. And I love that the question that I have is do you speak with him every day?
Yeah, at some point. I think Allison may do it more than I do, but it's like we have our own little rituals. And for me, it's usually when I'm in the car. That's my time to speak with Dylan. And speaking of rituals, I mean, we all have little rituals. Like I've got a necklace that has his thumbprint on it from when he was cremated. They take the fingerprints, right? And so I got a piece of jewelry made with that. And so every time I put that on, it's got a cross as well in front of his thumbprint, and I kiss it, and that I actually feel connected when I'm doing that. It's not a quick, it's like take the time to have a moment, and Allison's got
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. It really is awesome, and I really
you're welcome. You're welcome. I was telling another guy that this is actually a selfish thing because this helps me. as much as it helps anyone, and I hope it does help others,
Yeah, you can tell that you and him had a very close relationship. That is awesome.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. We were definitely joined at the hip sometimes, We had this
Great to see. It's great to hear. It's great to hear and great to see.
Okay.
Thank you
Thanks a
so
lot.
much.
Thanks, Andrea. Yeah.
And Mike, what you just said, I just very quickly have to interject. It's true that helping others helps us so much more than it helps anyone else. And that's exactly what we learn.
Yeah.
When our kids pass, they just love to watch us doing it. And they're like the dads in the delivery ward pointing through the glass saying, that's my kid, that's my kid. And instead it's our kids saying, that's my dad, that's my mom. And they're just so happy when we are able to help others. So I'm glad that you said that. It sounds like somebody else wants to say something here. Who else is on?
Something real quick. I just wanted to thank Mike for everything that he's doing for the dads. There's a
Thank
dad
you.
that has benefited, and he's not here tonight. He got let out of jail. He's got a paddleball league on Thursday night, so he's excited to go. Otherwise, he'd be sitting next to me. But yeah, he doesn't get out much in the Corona days. But thank you so much for everything that you're doing to help the dads.
You're welcome.
It's just wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Suzanne. And, like I said, spouses and partners are our best recruiters, I think.
Yeah, I'm a recruiter.
And I see that I got a lot of dads here, but, I've got 150 dads in the group. And when we do our bi-weekly meetings, we may have, 10 to 15. And then when it comes to Facebook posting, it's like pulling teeth, man, to get guys to post, to open up and share some feelings and get vulnerable. Because, like I said, we suck at grief and we don't like to get vulnerable, and we sure don't get vulnerable in mixed crowds. So none of these guys are probably going to say a word tonight. And right, Ahmed? And so, but, that's just the way we're wired, and that's okay. That's just the way it is. But that's why we really hope that the Helping Fathers Heal provides a secure, safe environment where we can open up. But like I said, it takes effort, and some of these guys put a lot of effort into this, showing up and they do post. And, if there's any ideas or anything that I can do differently to get more participation, I'd love to hear it. So.
Well, first of all, it looks like Chris is going to say something because he's unmuted himself. So let's hear what Chris has to say.
I was wondering how long it'd take.
Yeah. Not bad, Mike. You didn't embarrass yourself. No, I was kind of waiting for a chance to say this because I figured there'd be a time, and you gave me a good segue here. I'm a semi-regular on the bi-weekly meetings. I make it when I can, which is probably most of the time, at least. And we do tend to have. I'm really talking to the women out there who have husbands. And I know there's a couple guys on here too, but it is a different group. And we have some pretty deep conversations. There is a real willingness for guys. There's some amazingly heartbreaking stories. We've all been there where you're fresh into it, a month, 2 months. Some of it's unbelievable. It took me a year before I wanted to talk to anybody about this stuff. We have people coming who are at all stages, and we have some really open and deep, vulnerable conversations. It is I usually come away from those calls either feeling really humbled by what I heard or feeling really, really good. It can be a very rewarding time. And, if if you're a guy here that's wondering if there's a safe place to talk, it is a place to do that. And if you're a spouse that has somebody that, you know, could benefit from it, I encourage you to poke him and get him on the Facebook group and get Mike to admit him to the group so we can get on some calls.
Yeah.
It's been really good.
Oh no, I just was applauding. I was greeting what he was saying.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That's
You bet.
beautiful. Thank you, Carmen. I want to, before we get too far along, Jody had asked if her husband might be able to attend the meetings even if he isn't a part of helping Fathers Heal or helping Parents Heal on Facebook.
Absolutely.
But what Allison is saying, which is wonderful, is that all you need is his email address so that you can send the Zoom link. Is it possible for me to put your email address on this YouTube video so that people might be able to contact you as well? Okay, good. That's wonderful.
You bet. Yeah.
And it is wonderful to have a little bit a better idea. I think that a lot of times when people hear that there's a group to talk about their kids who are in spirit, that it's a grief group and it's going to be sad. And I want everybody here to know that nobody likes the word bereaved. Bereaved is the saddest word in the dictionary. And that's why we call ourselves Shining Light Parents, because the light of our kids shines through us. And so you guys are all Shining Light dads, and the meetings aren't meant to be sad. They're meant to make you feel happier when you leave than when you came into the meeting. And I think that that's basically what happens at every meeting of Helping Parents Heal. And I also just want to acknowledge Suzanne on here, who is a caring listener. And I feel very fortunate. This is another service. We have 14 parents who are ready to talk to other parents about anything that they want to talk about, and it's completely free of charge. And we have all of that information on our website as well. And is there anybody else that wanted to talk to Mike before we say goodbye? Any other information?
If I could throw something else in there, you know, these Zoom meetings are so easy. A lot of times when, particularly the new dads that are really hurting in the first few months or whatever, they're really struggling. If you have a father who doesn't even want to, you know, sit in with a lot of guys, you know, I offer one-on-one Zoom meetings. I've had a couple with, I had one that was a couple hours with a guy in Santiago, Chile, and a couple over in India. And, you know, so I'm always available and willing to sit with somebody one-on-one with these Zoom meetings because it's so easy and it works, and it's, you know, so there's no pressure, no stress, and if somebody wants to attend one of those meetings, like you're saying, Elizabeth, you know, if I have their email address, I'll put them on the distribution list and they can attend or not attend. If you do attend though, you know, you're not obligated to speak or show yourself or anything. You know, you can just sit and listen and soak it up, you know. So we're not a high pressure bunch of guys or anything like that. And sometimes we do joke around a little bit just to lighten it up a little bit, but, you know, that doesn't mean that we're not still hurting and missing our kids, you know. So
that's wonderful, though. It's so great to be able to have just a group for dads. I mean, a group just for dads, I guess is what I meant to say. And you know, this is one of the things that Open to Hope was really excited about as well, because they wanted to have a session in their breakout sessions that was specifically for dads, because it is hard to find a good group where guys want to go and where they don't feel intimidated by their wives. And I totally get that. And so anyway, thank you for doing this, Mike. This is just wonderful. And Allison, thank you for helping him do this. And also thank all of you for being on here tonight. And what we usually do when we sign off is that everybody unmutes and says goodbye and thank you to Mike. And I'm just really excited about this. I'll be posting this as soon as Mike gets this to me, probably tomorrow morning or maybe this evening. But in any case, thank you all for being on here, and unmute yourselves.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
You rock, Mike. You rock.
Oh, thanks, man.
Thank you.
Well, Mike.
I love
Thank
all
you
you
so
guys.
much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye now.
Thank you.